Where would you expect to find a ghost? Somewhere historical, usually. Gothic castles, creepy graveyards, and old country houses are favourite. Comparatively, newfangled things like aeroplanes don't often get a mention. But airborne apparitions are what witnesses claim to have encountered in tonight's second story. The Derbyshire Dales, where swirling mists descend almost daily to swallow up those brave enough to venture onto the hills. In the skies above, the dense fog can be just as treacherous and unforgiving. Littered with crash sites, the peaks are a graveyard for more than 200 aeroplanes. Many of the crews who lost their lives were returning from wartime bombing missions, young men who weren't ready to die. The tragic nature of their deaths may account for the Peak District's long history of mysterious sightings. For Sheffield postman Tony Ingle, the peaks provide an escape from city life. Last summer, he saw something that he couldn't explain.
Took the dog up the lane for a walk, got so far up, and then I suddenly saw this plane out of the sky coming down the valley. And it was very, very eerie. The propellers were going around, but there was no sound. And it was dipping all the time, as if it was getting lower and lower. And I thought, crikey, this thing is going to crash. And as I looked over the edge, I thought I'd see the plane. There was no plane. So I just looked, and there was just lambs and sheep in the fields. The best way to describe it was as if someone had died and he'd moved into a room, and it was just like death. It was terrible. It was a very eerie sensation, not very nice at all. And since then, we've tried to get him up the lane, and he just won't have it. He'll just cower down in certain areas, and you've got to visibly pull him up. And we've tried it with myself going up the lane with a dog, my wife going up the lane with a dog, and friends, and he just won't have it.
Come on! Was Ben displaying evidence of the sixth sense that many animals are believed to possess? A few Dakotas are still flying today. Maybe that could explain what Tony saw.
Well, we've got 11 Dakota aircrafts, and therefore that makes us certainly the largest Dakota operation, civilian Dakota operation in the world, in fact. And we checked into the flight time details that you gave us, and we found that none of our aircraft were airborne, let alone in the area that you specified on the time in question.
The only other British Dakota that could have been flying at the time belonged to the RAF. It was airborne that day, but 150 miles away. So no Dakotas had been flying in that area at the time of Tony's sighting. But one had crashed there 50 years earlier.
Yeah, 15 to 5, that was embarrassing. Well,
a crew of US servicemen prepare to board a C-47 Dakota at Leicester East. The war in Europe has just finished, and spirits are high.
It has something to do with your pitching. Oh, yeah? Well, if you're going to throw a curveball, I mean, I don't want to criticize. Come on, don't scare me. If you're going to throw a curveball, you want to put some curve on it. It's something... Hey, how you doing?
Hi, dear lads. My name's John.
John, I'm George.
Pleased to meet you, George.
Oh.
Pleased to meet you, Al.
What can we do for you?
Well, a little gut tells me that you lads are flying up to Scotland, Renfrew.
As a matter of fact, we are.
Well, you see, the thing is, I'm looking to visit my mum, who's in Renfrew, and I was wondering if you might have room for a little one. And the Jeep, of course.
And the Jeep as well?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, well, we usually got room for small Scotch, John.
All right, you're on.
Thank you very much.
Okay, guys, you ready? You got the pins and rudder lock?
Yeah, down the pins, down the lock.
All right. You guys, we're going to get you next time.
No chance.
With their extra passenger, RAF serviceman John Dunlop Main, the US airmen set off for Renfrew, north of the border, on a purely administrative mission.
Clouds, where we are. God, we're too low. Pull up, we're gonna crash. Hang on for a crash landing, we're gonna hit!
Official papers record the roll call of the dead. 6 American servicemen and 1 British.
was very shocked to hear that the plane had crashed in this area and that people are being killed.
The mystery deepened after Tony's story appeared in the local paper. Others wrote with their own sightings of phantom planes in the peaks. The earliest dated back to 1948.
I must have been about 7 or 8 when I saw the plane. I remember it because I'd been interested in planes from a very early age. I preferred them to dolls.
Mummy?
Young Audrey Twigg had been with her mother in the Hope Valley when she saw something.
Sandwich, you haven't eaten anything.
I can see what's just up there.
Your eyesight's better than mine.
Look.
What baffled me mostly was the fact that Mum couldn't see it.
Do you want a cheese?
I think the strangest thing was how low it was.
Weather's turning.
Could Audrey's sighting all those years ago be part of the same mystery as Tony's encounter? Paul Booth and Stephen Lewis devote their time to piecing together the history of the tragedies.
In my research, I found that a lot of these phantom sightings have actually taken place in areas where the actual aircraft have crashed.
But what about the Hope Valley, where young Audrey made her sighting?
There was a Airspeed Oxford crash in the Hope Valley, and the young pilot was only 19-year-old. And he was doing his first solo navigation flight, and he took off in clear weather, and a cloud came down as it is today, and he descended through the cloud to try and find his position, and the aircraft flew straight into the moor.
Tony Ingall's story also brought more recent sightings into the open. Verena Bishop from Sheffield had her own strange experience in 1994.
It was a Thursday afternoon in March. I was walking from Hope along the Castleton Road. Something made me look up into the sky, and seemingly just above my head was this plane. There was no sound whatsoever. The wing must have been directly over my head because I just saw the fuselage. And I thought it's going to crash. I had to duck. It was so low, I thought it's going to hit me. It just skimmed over the fields, and about the second field disappeared completely. So I thought perhaps there's a hollow in the field that it's gone down there. However, I waited for an explosion, but nothing happened.
In fact, a plane had crashed in exactly the same spot 51 years earlier. Farmer Joe Eyre saw it go down.
I was taking a load of coal up to a farmhouse. Apparently the plane crossed a cement works quarry exceedingly low, and they must have come in a straight line and plunged straight into this bank and blew up.
There are still hollows marking the plane's impact. 5 airmen have been on board a Wellington bomber flying from Wellesbourne, Mountford, near Stratford-upon-Avon, in 1943. But Verena Bishop had no idea a Wellington had gone down in that field.
When I heard about the history, I was amazed to find later that there had been a crash in exactly the same spot as I'd seen it. It was quite eerie, having had that experience.
Aircraft historian Gerald Scarrett tells of a macabre twist to the ghost plane stories. He's investigated crashes for more than 40 years, among them the loss of a giant Super Fortress bomber.
The B-29 crashed in November 1948 on Bleaklaw, which is the biggest hill at the back of Glossop, 1,600 feet above sea level.
Gerald's fascination with the history has taken him on numerous visits to the scene of the crash.
It was my birthday, 1974, and I'm just scratching about in the wreck. It had been raining very hard, and when it rains very hard, it kind of sieves all the small pieces. And I bent down, I thought it was a brass washer, and when I picked it up, it was a ring. I wiped the peat out of the inside of it, and it had a name on, Landon P. Tanner. I knew all the names of the crew, and he was the pilot. And I sent it back to the States.
It was on a routine reconnaissance photo mission from RAF Scampton.
Well, with me finding the ring, these chaps from Birmingham who do this kind of thing in Snowdonia got in touch with me. She said, can we come up and can you show us the wreck? I said, yes. So they came up, and I took them up to the B-29.
They found one of the crew's watches, smashed. And it had stopped at 10:50 at the time.
One of the lads said, whereabouts did you find the ring? And I said, here. I kind of bent down to show him the exact spot. And the next thing I looked up, and they were kind of 10, 15 yards away. And they just scampered off and were like scared rabbits.
Where are you going?
They were just ashen-faced and left me there. It's quite away from the road.
When Gerald caught up with them, they told him what they'd seen.
I said, what are you doing there? They said, believe it or not, there's someone standing behind you looking down with full flying uniform on.
Hey, look up!
And I turned around, obviously, and saw nothing. And they said, hey, well, we've seen it, we're going. And they shut off the moor. Thanks for bringing us. And they went. And I've never heard from them since.
Some believe there are lost souls on the moors. If this should be the case, at least attempts are now being made to lay them to rest. In May 1995, a memorial service was held on top of Bleaklow for the airmen who died in the Dakota crash. 9 months later, the tragic victims aboard the Wellington were remembered with the laying of a plaque in the Hope Valley. There are more memorials planned, but since those commemorations, there have been no reported sightings of the Wellington. The Dakota hasn't been spotted either. For all that, Tony Ingle says his dog Ben still won't return to the site of the crash. Good night.